Who am I? First off, I am a huge zombie fan, any and all apocalyptic movies and TV shows. I was an extra in The Walking Dead once. I was not a zombie. This is me and my daughter. We did this during COVID. I was bored one day. I'm like, let's just do zombie something. So a little piece of me there. But more importantly, who am I in this field? I've been in the field for about 24 years. I started very young. No, not true. But I have been in a leadership position since the day I started, and I've been managing people since the day I started. So I'll say that, and to say that I've learned a lot of mistakes made, because we're all making mistakes when we're hiring people, and keeping people is difficult at times. So I'm hoping to share some of those stories with you. The other thing I'll tell you is I'm not an HR expert. When I ran, the last organization I ran, I was an ED for 9 years. I took that organization from 18 staff members at a 49% save rate up to a 90% save rate to a very large building with over 50 people. So a lot of my stories are going to come from that experience, since I'm assuming most of the people in the room are running shelters or organizations or rescue organizations. Anything that I'm talking about can be used in any type of organization. I currently am over the Lifesaving Centers for Best Friends Animal Society. So I oversee the New York Center, the Salt Lake City Center, and the LA Center. So, and a lot of my team members are here, so I'll be telling stories from the past, just so you're aware of that too. So these are the agenda items I'm going to go over today. We're going to talk about defining who your organization is, because I truly believe it's very paramount to bringing in the right people, is you all have to know who you are. Hiring the right people, onboarding, staffing fun, and then leading the charge. The last section's on leadership. So who are you? So I feel like it's important for everyone to know who they are, but they also should know where they're headed. And so the very first thing I like to talk about is the long-range plans. So who here in this room has a long-range plan for their organization? Awesome, that is great. Too often we don't, and it's important for the staff, but it's also important for your community to know where you're headed so they can get onto that bus with you and be a part of the solution that you're trying to plan for. This is just an example that I was given by one of the regional team members. Their long-range plan is a path to 90%. You can have that big overarching goal, and then each one of these is the pillars on how they're going to get there. And just so you know, at the very end, I do have a QR code that you can download and have access to this presentation, just so you're aware. So if you don't catch all of it, that's fine. Everybody, I'm assuming, has a mission and vision statement. Does everyone have a vision statement, though? Okay, yeah, okay. Because some don't. I will tell you, in Lynchburg, when I started, we didn't have a vision statement. We had no long-range plan. We barely had a mission statement. If we did, no one knew what it was. So it's important that your staff also know what your vision statement is, your mission statement is, and that everybody should have goals of some sort. And you should visit those goals monthly, quarterly, yearly, obviously. And if you don't have goals, I suggest you set it up. And goals to me are for shorter periods of time. Long-range plan is usually for 3 to 5 years, or 9 years, or 10 years, or whatever those number of years you need to be able to accomplish the goal. And I just threw some examples of some good goals up. And then taglines. Does everyone, who does not have a tagline in here? Does not. So most of you do, some of you don't. I love taglines because it sets the tone for the organization in a snapshot. So Lynchburg Humane Society, again, when I started, did not have a tagline. And when we moved from our old building into our new building, we decided we wanted to kind of have a tag to encourage people to come to us. And the few members of the board and I and a few key staff members created this tagline of Find Happiness. And that truly is the overarching theme of that organization. 100%. We want people to find happiness, pets, volunteers. We want people to donate happiness. So it really runs through the thread of that organization. And I'll spend a little bit more time on this, culture. Does everyone have culture words or values? Most of you? Yeah. So when we went from the old building, which was falling apart, 18 staff members, to a new building with close to 50 people, we did that in a very short period of time. We did not have any culture or value words or core values of any kind. And what we found was when you grow that fast and when you have that many people, the organization started to be run through chaos. And the staff was running things, and there became its underlying culture that we didn't want. So we sat down, the board and some key leadership people sat down, created a long list of words that we thought would be good to use or phrases. We then let the staff choose what the culture words were. We put it out, we did a survey to volunteers and staff, select 2 to 3 words, and then they selected it. We did that because if they didn't select it, they wouldn't have buy-in and they wouldn't be a part of this culture. And we were going to do everything to this culture. We hired to it, we fired to it, we did reviews to it. Every culture word was on our review, and we review people to these words. So here we go. This is our culture words. Smile and say yes. See it, fix it, do it. Play. They put play because we wanted to make sure we were having fun at work. It can't be all work all the time. And so we were surprised that they picked play, but their mind, they wanted also for dogs to play, the cats to play. It was should be a playful place. Have goals and smash them, that's pretty apparent. Assume the best. Assume the best of the public, assume the best of each other. And it was basically come from a place of positivity and greet each person where they are. Be worthy of high esteem. When we moved into our new building, the staff felt like it was important to be humble, to be aware that the community gave us this gift and that we should be thankful for it and we should treat people that way. And then the last is glitter. I know, everyone says, what? It's extraordinary, it delights, it sparkles, it makes an impact, and it sticks around longer than intended. So just glitter. I got a lot of glitter presents in that first year. So once you know who you are and what you're hiring to, what your culture is, it makes it so much easier to start to fill in the gaps of the people that you want to bring in. So what are you looking for? So one of the things I always used to tell my hiring managers is sit down and make a list of exactly what you're looking for and the skills that you're looking for. And each job is going to have a different skill set, right? You're going to have a different skill set for a vet tech than for a front desk adoptions counselor or for your accountant. But it's important to know what qualities you really want in the people coming in so that you can just build your questions around those qualities. And I know this seems very basic, but it's something people don't do very often. They just create a list of questions because they sound like good questions. And then what are you not looking for? I think that's also just as important. This was a list that we came up with at Lynchburg, and I think it's a pretty good list in general. Like, this is the type of people we do not want here, mainly because they bring negativity and disruption to the workplace. And then what we did, the staff did this on their own, which I thought was fabulous. I was like, we need to post something on social media. We're looking for some front desk people. So this is, find happiness, right? This is who we were at Lynchburg. And you can see how old this post is. It's pretty old. And then tell people what you're looking for. And so more people will self-select themselves out when you show them what you want. And then I thought this was a really good post on social media I saw last week, where they had pictures of their staff doing different jobs and with different animals, and it will entice people to come and check out your organization and apply. Okay, so you'll understand why I have sorry, my nose is running, why we have a penguin and a sombrero in a second. So one of the things we did at Lynchburg is we obviously had an application everyone had to fill out, right? But we would get so many applications, we decided to do a pre-screening interview. So they would download the application in this pre-screening interview. They were also told to check out the culture words, our core values, to make sure they were aligned. And then they would have to turn this back into us. And they're really silly, stupid questions. Just we knew that going in. We just wanted to have fun with it. And it really told us a lot about people, truthfully. What do you enjoy about the workplace? What annoys you about the workplace? That's a great question, because if they get annoyed by certain things in the workplace, and you know your workplace is like that, probably not a good fit. What 3 things would you bring to a deserted island? If you could meet anyone living or dead, who would you meet? How lucky are you and why? Why do you think I asked that question? Exactly. What sound do you love? What sound do you love? Purring, yeah. Kids' giggles for me. I love listening to kids giggle. The screaming, not so much. What is the coolest thing you've been for Halloween? We asked that question because we did a lot of videos at Lynchburg. I was famous for making people dress up as different Star Wars characters for Star Wars Day. We would do a stupid little video for social media. Or like I was famous for making fool of myself as Princess Leia, talking to a dryer thinking it's R2-D2. So we wanted to make sure people were comfortable in that type of situation. A penguin walks through the door right now wearing a sombrero. What does he say and why is he here? How creative are they? We didn't always need creative people, but it's just a fun question. If you could live on a TV show or a movie for 1 week, what character would you choose? Rory Gilmore, right here. Totally, Gilmore Girls. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how narcissistic are you? But look at this answer. It's the best answer we ever had, and we hired her as a manager. I was unable to finish this question as it interfered with my scheduled stare at yourself in the mirror, bask in my greatness portion of the day. But that's what everyone does, right? From 3 to 5. So I would say 1, not a narcissist at all. So it's just cute. So have fun. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't have to be always serious. And it tells you who these people are that are coming in the door to do the interview. And it gives you a little snapshot of who they are too. So, and I just threw together some interview questions. These are like more of the basic ones. We always ask which core value most aligned with them, because we told them to read the core values. So if they come in and don't have a clue, then we know that that's just one thing they didn't do. And we did mark that against them. One of the questions on here I still ask today, is if you wrote an autobiography, what would the title be? And it's one of the harder questions for them, because it's a question you're not expecting in an interview. And it really does give you an idea of who they are, who the candidate is. And I think it's a fun, creative question. Anyway, so these are just some good examples of some good questions. And I have another bit, which are a little bit more focused on management. These are some questions that we asked during management interviews. Why do staff become disengaged and dissatisfied in the workplace is a good question, and then how do you solve that? And do you believe in Bigfoot? I do ask that sometimes, and it's not because I care if someone believes in Bigfoot or not, but I like how they react to the question. So I'll say this, when we used to get those questionnaires in from the applicants, we had people not fill out some of the questions, or they would comment on the question itself as being really silly. And that, again, they self-selected themselves out of the process. Do you believe in Bigfoot? If someone was super serious about it and was almost like, this is really, okay, probably self-selected out of the process a little bit. So I didn't care if you believed in Bigfoot or not. Who here believes in Bigfoot? There you go. I don't care. I have Bigfoot stickers everywhere because of this question. And if you are a leader or you have supervisors under you, it's important to set your staff up for success. So one of the things I did is I created a long list of interview questions that they can just pull from. And I would put personality questions, I would put management questions, I would put skill set questions. And so they can go on to that sheet and just build their own interviews section. The other thing I did if I had a new manager coming in is I would sit in the panels with them. I would do those interviews with them so that we could talk about afterwards what I saw, what they might have saw. Did you notice they didn't look at us the whole time? They were looking down. Did you notice this? I picked up on that. So it's a good teaching skill to work with people through that. And then what we did in Lynchburg, and we do the same in Best Friends. Whenever we do panel interviews, we set up our spreadsheet with the questions, and then we have the interviewees rank how the person did with each question, 1 to 5. So this is similar. Like, you want to put together what you're looking for, like common reasons not to consider someone to be hired, and then a criteria in which they rank so that they have a numeric number at the end, and then they're only looking at those with the higher numeric numbers. Does that make sense? And you can see we have core values in here. And then onboarding. This is something that I think a lot of organizations fall down on. I know we did it first. We just were hiring so many people, we really didn't go through the steps like we needed to. And I know everybody's been in a position where you're down 3 animal care people and you just want to get people in the door to start doing the job. At Best Friends, when we hire new people in, they spend a full week learning about the organization, and then they don't step foot in any of the centers or start doing their work until the week 2. And that's to get them truly grounded in who we are as an organization, what they need to learn about all the different systems, how to navigate a very large 900 people organization. So it was very important to us. In Lynchburg, I didn't do that. We did jump people in. We would spend 1 day kind of going through a lot of our culture and values, our beliefs, our programs, kind of where do you park, some of that stuff. Day 2, we would jump into the trainings depending on the role they had, and I'll talk about that. But a lot of this information I have here, I would sit down with new team members when I was the ED once a month and get to know them. But more importantly, I wanted them to hear from me what was important to me and to help them, give them some tools on navigating through a large team. So expectations was what I would talk about, what my expectations were for the organization, what we were striving to do. I would also talk about negative influences. A good example is we had a staff member that was with us for 3 years. He started to date someone that came into the organization, and she was a very negative person who saw the negative in all things. And unfortunately, that was a negative influence on him, and he left along with her. He did come back a year later begging for his job back because he burnt some bridges with us, and he recognized that he was being influenced by someone who had a negative viewpoint. So I like to talk about be careful in who you associate with. We want you to make friends. We want you to have a good time here at work. But please recognize when you start to receive a lot of negative information and a lot of negativity, and just be aware of that can truly be an influence that you may not want. Triangulation. Does everyone know what triangulation is? Okay, I'll explain it real fast. It's like Susie talking to Mary about how she hates Alice, but never talking to Alice about the problems she's having with her. And instead, Susie's in the middle of the whole cycle. So it's instead of going to the person. So I always talk about that with new team members when I was in ED, because I want them to understand how to handle conflict and how to handle when they're not happy about something. So again, try and set them up and give them the tools and create an environment where there's an open door policy with yourself as a manager and as an executive director. And then at the end, I always like to know who they are, obviously, and I want to make sure they know who I am and they see me as a person and a human being. If you're a head of an organization and you're behind a desk all day and you're not out in the trenches with the team, they forget that. So I think it's important to be human. And I am human, obviously, I make mistakes. And owning up to that, to the team, is important. Of course, I put euthanasia on here. I think it's important that they understand where to go to, who to talk to if they have problems with euthanasia decisions. Again, creating an open environment for discussion and conversations. There's many different ways to do this type of training. You can do a simple checklist, like a piece of paper or boxes where they check it off. They did it, initial for the trainer. You know, how to clean a cat cage. How do you find the litter box supplies? Anyway, you could do Trello board, which I have an example of. This is an example we had built for Best Friends for some onboarding with new team members. I believe it was for the regional work. And then if you click on one of those tab things, it comes up with a checklist and gives you materials that you have to go and read. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this just because everyone can just do it their own way. This is Claudia is onboarding actually, I think this week at the Salt Lake City Center as an events person. And so we use Asana for that, and it's broken down to day one. These are the things she needs to do. And then who's responsible for making sure she's doing it. And so we have an electronic record of all the things she's learning and what she still needs to learn. And we build them out to be first day, 30 day, 60 day, 90 day. I'm just curious, who doesn't do a whole lot of onboarding? I think it's definitely a step that we forget. And I think it's important to retain your staff if they feel connected to what you're doing. It's the best way of doing that. All right, now you got them on the bus. What's the problem? So these are communication. Why do teams start to break apart? They are not feeling informed. I think that's one of the things we used to hear all the time. There's no communication. The goals or expectations are unclear. There's power plays happening in the workplace. Lack of trust. That could be a lack of trust of each other, a lack of trust of the leadership. There's a lack of friends. I think it is important for people to have friends at work, to feel like they have a community or a connection. And now I want to say this. I don't think the managers should be friends with the team that they manage. I think they can be friendly. I think they can do some things, but not like go hang out and have party time with each other for long periods. You know, I just want to throw that out there. I think there's a lot of missteps when management is truly like really close friends with everybody that they run. Now, I'm not saying that. Audrey's here. She used to be under me, and we're friends. I think it's a little different in a shelter environment, though. We were, I know I'm contradicting myself, and I get it, but we were remote staff members. Does that make sense? And it's not like we were hanging out at the local bar every week. We were remote, but we probably would have been. Lack of accountability. People don't feel like people are being held accountable. One of the best ways of losing staff, a really good staff, is you're not holding the people that aren't doing the job accountable for the work. So you have the steady plugger, it does the work every day, it does it well, sees that Joe over here isn't keeping up or not doing what he should be, nothing's happening about it. So I do think that's an important one to point out. Change is too much. So not everyone likes change. In Lynchburg, we changed all the time. I can tell you, Best Friends, we change a lot. So I always tried to weave in a question in my interview process to make sure they're okay with change. What's something that you changed your mind on that you don't believe anymore? Or how do you feel about chronic change? Just a simple question. Because some people don't do well with that. So if you have team members not doing well with change, I think it's important to look at the process of change and back it up a little bit and learn how to manage that change. I'm not going to go into change management. That could be a whole class. But I do suggest that when you're doing something like a major change, that you involve the team that you're managing. There's a leadership problem. Most times than not, that can be a real problem. And then obviously problem employees. I chose this picture of a cat because it reminded me of a development staff member I had who would stare at me like this. She had that deadpan stare at me whenever I talked to her. It is very intimidating when someone does that. So I just threw together this basic list of problem employees. Again, you should just be aware of when you start to see these types of behaviors. The worst employee, if I ask the question, what's the worst employee to manage? Who's the hardest employee to manage? For me, it's the people that don't see themselves, that you can't communicate with them when they're having some problems, or you can't give them feedback because they don't think anything's wrong with them. So I'm not going to go through this full list because I want to cover some other things that are a little bit more important, but these are just examples of some of the issues that you're going to see probably in the workplace. Yeah, so sensitives. People in the workplace who are sensitive about how people say things to them all the time. And I say all the time. 90% of the time, you have to be careful of exactly how you talk to them or what you're saying to them. They're also sensitive to the point where they can be disruptive when you're having to make hard decisions. I had a team member who would cry in the hallway, sobbing, crying, like doubled over, whenever there was an animal that had to be euthanized. So I don't fault them for those feelings. I think that's fair, and I think it's valuable, just perhaps not always in the workplace with all hard decisions. And I know I'm making an extreme example, but the people who are sensitive because they're talking over here and they didn't include me to sit with them at lunch. I'm just the sensitive. 14-year-old girls, for instance. I have a 14-year-old girl, I know. I'm not in the chat. I'm so sorry, Lily. And it's not necessarily meaning get rid of them. It might just be a conversation and just making them aware that the behavior they're exhibiting is being disruptive. Let's talk about fixing some of the stuff that you're seeing. For intervention, let's be honest with people. So one of the things, I have a son also. I have a daughter and a son. He used to play soccer. And what I noticed on the soccer field is his coach a lot of times telling him all the things he's doing wrong, right? You should have been over here covering this person. Why were you using your left foot? You should have used your right. Like, he was very much directive all the time. And let's work on this skill because you haven't done that. What I find interesting is in the workplace, we don't do that as much as we probably should. We should be pointing out all the positive things people are doing, absolutely. Reward, reward, reward what you want to see. But we shouldn't be afraid to coach people. And that's the way I look at it. I'm coaching someone. I'm trying to help them fit in better to this culture or fit in better to what we need as an organization, but to also help them grow and better themselves into other types of positions they might be interested in. So I think it's something that a lot of management team members have difficulty doing because you don't want to hurt their feelings, right? But by not saying something, it hurts them in the long run. I'm going to tell you two stories. These are both managers from days in Lynchburg. Nobody in the room is not talking about you. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Brittany. So I had two Lauries. They're both named Lori. I had one Lori early days when I first came into the organization who was militant, her way or no way, was willing to take what I needed to have happen and have it done. She was very much a get it done type of person, very authoritative. The staff was afraid of her. Nobody liked her. She couldn't really get people to do what she wanted them to do because she was so mean all the time. Yes, I did let her go, but I didn't know until the staff started coming and telling me what was going on. And so finally I listened, because it did take a little bit of time, because I'm a very loyal person to my management team. But when you have staff coming to you and talking to you about some of the problems they're having with their manager, please listen to them. The second Lori was the opposite. She wanted everyone to like her. She was my director of ops. And she never resolved any problem that anyone ever brought to her because she didn't want to upset the person that they had a problem with. And so what happened when she left of her own choosing, because I didn't know any of this stuff. We had a team that was completely broken because they had no trust in the manager to really get things done and fix the problems they were facing. And that rose up to me. They saw me as a problem because they didn't feel like I was helping that manager fix the problems when I had no clue. So just recognizing that being too authoritative is not good. Being too kind and too nice and wanting to get birthday cakes every week for everybody's bringing in gifts isn't always good either. It just needs to find a middle ground. So setting your team up for success, that's an easy one. Just make sure they have all the resources they need in order to perform the job they have to perform. And then communication. So communication is important, obviously. There's many different types of platforms to think about. So at Best Friends, we use Microsoft Teams. So you can chat people, you can create Teams channels of all the managers in this section. It's almost like a text messaging system, and it can be very noisy at times, but it's a really good communicator for us. So for instance, at Soho, they have an all-staff chat where they can chat. I have 3 adoptions on deck. I need help up front. Or someone needs to do a meet and greet with such and such. So we use that for that purpose. In Lynchburg, we didn't have that. We didn't want to pay for it, so we use Slack. I don't even know if Slack is still around anymore, but it is something that I think is a really good tool for that. I remember I couldn't get anybody to answer a phone, which of course not. We never answer phones in shelters, do we? And I needed to get someone to open the back door for me because I had a whole load of litter. And I just slacked it and someone opened the door right away. So just trying to look at creatively how you can have better communication as simple tools like that. Walkie-talkies is what we use in Salt Lake City. So they can walkie-talkie each other. I need this or I need that. Communicate when you're making changes or making decisions, the why. It's very important. I think most of you will agree that you probably are doing that now, but I just want to emphasize it. If you're wanting to make a decision, make sure the team knows that and understands the why. HR. So this is interesting. So we have an HR department at Best Friends, so I'm not talking about the broader department. But when I would get a team member coming to me and complaining or upset with somebody, Joe is not doing this, and this, and I feel very frustrated, and I need you to help with this problem. I would let the person know at that time that I heard them, I will do something about it, but you may never know what I did, because it's an HR issue, and I can't come back and tell you that I wrote Joe up for not doing his tasks at the end of the day. So I always try and set people up to have so they don't get frustrated when I don't know what they did. I never heard back about it. You may never hear back about it. Just hopefully you'll see improvement. And if you don't see improvement within the next few weeks, then please let me know and I'm happy to address it again. So, and then obviously listen. And it goes back to 2 L's. Like I had people really complaining to me and I ignored them. And I shouldn't have ignored them. And I should have taken action a little bit quicker. Help them find excellence elsewhere. Do I need to explain that? I also want to say this. I have seen a lot of team members that are in the wrong position. So you have someone who is a front desk staff member who is not really all that friendly and not doing well in that job. Is there another position in the organization they can go into that they might be better suited? So, but help them find excellence elsewhere. And then research and find out what the truth is. So one day in Lynchburg, my finance person came to me and she sat down and she said, "We have a morale issue." I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's find happiness. Everybody is so happy here. It's so great." "No, you have a morale issue. You have a lot of very unhappy people." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Instead of just taking her word on it, I said, "Well, let's find out. I'm all about research and data." So I did my own little survey of the team, anonymous. You didn't have to put your name on it. You didn't even have to answer all the questions, just to find out kind of what the truth is. So I know you can't read it, So I'm going to have to read some of these probably. And I guess it doesn't really matter. Do you have fun at work? How can we make work more fun? Name 1 or 2 items that would make your department better. Name 1 or 2 items to make the organization better. Name at least 1 program or service you'd like the organization to offer. So it's just kind of a way to engage them in being a part of the organization, right? What goal or aspiration would you like to manage? Would like management to know you have? Is there anything else you would like to share with us? And then this is the part where I was trying to find out like how unhappy people are. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you at work? What do you love the most and or feel most proud about? LHS. Would you refer someone to work here? Historically, if you were to quit tomorrow, what would the reason be? And then if you were given the chance, would you reapply to your current job? Would you, and that's a really good question. Would you come back and work here if you had an option to? And I also turn that around sometimes. If managers are having problems with a team member, I'll ask, would you hire that person again? Then there's your answer. But anyway, I digress. And these were the results. So majority of the people were on the high 7, 8, 9. I had 2 people who were unhappy. So what does that mean? I had the loudest 2 people in the organization talking a lot. And it obviously was making an impact. So it was my job to try and figure out how to engage these 2 people in a more positive way. But that's why I think it's important to do surveys once in a while and kind of check in with your team. Even I did this with the regional team when I was a director of regional work on the East Coast. I just did a quick pulse check on my management of that. Like, what are you unhappy with me? You know, what can I do to improve personally? And they actually really appreciated that. It was anonymous. I didn't know who any of the people were. And it was helpful to me to know in the areas I needed to grow myself. So this is just, would you refer someone to work here? Yes, 90% said they would. 1 person said they would only refer a person to work there if they had a good work ethic. I'm like, great. So I didn't have a morale issue. I had a 2-person issue. I'm going to do this video. So this is an example of having fun. So we did a lot of videos, and this is just, I was recording them. So we were doing a montage of stuff. We just moved into the building. Yeah, it's fun.
Everyone turn and go, ooh, 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 ooh.
He's like, what? Oh, yeah, okay. It's hard not to have fun when you do stuff like that. So, you know, one of the times we had a really bad day and I just shut the doors, we turned up the music, we had a dance party in the lobby because we just needed to shake it off, you know? So just look at ways of doing some fun stuff with your staff. It can't be work all the time. We used to do staff Olympics. We would break them into teams and have fun little games like put the crate together in 5 minutes or less, or who could put the crate together fastest. We had scavenger hunts where you had to find certain things throughout the building. Feel Good Fridays were days where every Friday we asked people to thank somebody, either thank somebody from the community, write a thank you note to a staff member, send an email, do something to say thank you or recognize somebody doing something well. And then challenges. So I didn't bring examples really because they were hard to show on a screen. But the LA team does meme challenges, which is so much fun to watch. They'll put up a prompt and say, it's 7 o'clock when we're closing, and you go and find that there's a missing kitten in the cat room. And then they have 5 minutes to put up a meme of what their reaction would be. And then whoever gets the most likes would win. And it's just fun. Everyone does memes nowadays, right? So looking at fun ways of challenging the staff. So let's talk about leadership. I got 10 more minutes. So this is a good example of all the different types of leaders. And I would say that you're probably not falling in just one of these categories. Personally, there are times where I am a coach. There are times where I am a commander because I want something done and I want it done. I'm not always the easiest person to work for. Sometimes I'm a visionary. So what I said, when I asked that question, what type of leader are you? I think it's important to recognize you're a different leader based on the people that you're leading and the people that you're managing, because they may need something from you that's different than the other person. So not to pigeonhole yourself into one category, and it's okay. So I just thought that was a cool display. And then this is, to me, what a good leader is. These are all the different qualities that make a good leader. You're a good example. You recognize good work. You are encouraging. You're not always beating down people. You're looking at ways of lifting them up, growing new leaders in your organization, expecting the best. Don't go into a situation expecting them to fail. Expect them to succeed and make sure they can do so with the tools that they have. So it's hard keeping everyone happy. So one of the things we found is in Lynchburg, when we started involving key staff members and their hiring of their team members, they started to get more excited about the job. So we would pull in some animal care people on a panel to interview new animal care people because they have to work with them. Look at different ways of involving the staff and also in the training too. I'm sure you all have like lead animal care, lead adoption counselors, lead something. Look at ways of creating those titles if you don't. It gives people room for advancement that maybe it's that growing the managers within type feeling. So look at ways of giving them the skills that they can grow from. As a leader, encourage debate. I will always enjoy having someone come to me and say they don't agree with the decision. I know that sounds crazy, but I want to learn what their perspective is. Everyone has their own perspective, and I love it when I hear what it is. I may say, I don't agree with you, and that's okay. We're still going to do X, Y, and Z, but I appreciate you telling me your perspective. And that makes them feel like they were heard. But it also, again, creates the environment that I'm hoping everybody wants, and that is open dialogue and learning as much as you can from the vast amount of great people that you have working for you, because you want everybody's experience to come out, and you want them to speak, and you want their ideas. So creating that environment is important. Communicate and listen openly, be authentic. Like I said, I'm not afraid of admitting I've made a mistake. I made a mistake just this week, actually. We put a social media post up we shouldn't have put up. Totally messed that up. Sorry. What I'm saying is be a real human being. I said it before, I've said it many times. I do think it's important to be real. Be clear on expectations. Be clear with your team what you're expecting, and they will follow, and they will get to where they need to go. If you're wishy-washy, they won't understand. Advancement opportunities. So I put this on here because everyone seems to think they have to be a supervisor or a manager to move up in an organization. Sure, they get more money, they get more responsibility, but not everybody should manage. Would you agree with that? So finding ways for your team members that maybe not good management would be good at learning new skill sets, would be good at being more versatile in the workplace. If they're interested in dog behavior, get them some dog behavior training classes, or create opportunities for them to take on a little bit more responsibility for a little bit more pay, gives them that feeling of advancement. The worst thing you can do is move someone into a management role that's not really shouldn't be managing, because that's just basically managing them out of the organization. Coach, teach, and train, I've said it before. It's one of my mantras. When someone's having a problem, I don't immediately go to let's fire them. I usually go, well, what do we need to do? We need to coach them, we need to talk to them, we need to train them, make sure they're trained, they can do the job, and we need to teach. And then we can help them find excellence elsewhere if necessary. Collaborate. It's important to have your team collaborate together, and it's important for you to collaborate with your team if you're making major decisions. So I am going to use a current example. One of our centers was having some issues with siloing. Everyone know it? Everyone have a shelter? Anybody in a shelter world here have siloing at their center? Yeah, the medical staff is different than the animal care, that's different from the volunteer foster. They don't know what I do, they don't understand. What we started to do is a lot of cross-training, but also shadowing. So we would have team members go with the intake team, with the team that goes out and pulls animals into our center, because they were getting a lot of backlash and negativity coming at them. Why did they choose that cat? I don't understand it. So we would send them out with them. We would send various team members out to see what they did and why they made certain decisions. Vice versa. Medical team would have to help out at the front desk some days. So look at ways of cross-training and allowing people to learn what the other people do in the organization. I've already said fire the wrong people. So this last slide is manager tips for new managers. Anybody here a new manager? Okay, great. I'm hoping this was helpful. You never know when you do these presentations. You got to be honest with you. Don't talk to other staff about other staff. Don't do it. It's easy to fall into that. But what happens if you're talking to Eric about what Bob did wrong and how much you can't stand that Bob keeps doing this and that, it does two things. It goes, Eric thinks, well, what is she saying about me? And then also they're like, well, why isn't she fixing that? It kind of takes away your authority a little bit. So just be careful in complaining to other people about the staff. You can complain up all day long, and you can complain this way, but don't complain down. Explain the why. I've said it. Challenge people to learn and grow. Involve them. Create leaders, and don't steal their struggle. Does anyone know what I mean by don't steal their struggle? Okay, so I have 2 minutes left. I have a 18-year-old son who's off to college for the first time, and they do this presentation for parents, and in this presentation they talk about resilience and strength. And what the person said, by stealing their struggle, by doing everything for them, they're not able to build stronger and to have these experiences and to fail and to pick themselves up and grow and do better. So as managers, we want to be helpful, we want to problem solve, but sometimes you have to let the team figure it out. That's what I'm saying. When you get the 48 dogs coming in for a hoarding case, that's a struggle. And to some ways that builds that team stronger because it makes everybody have to come together to deal with that negative situation to find a positive outcome. So don't steal struggle. Allow people to struggle, because that's how they get stronger and that's how they grow as individuals and they get better. Be honest but kind. Meet the staff where they are. Create a culture of trust and fail. It's okay to fail. People have to be able to fail, because if you don't do hard things sometimes, if you're not pushing yourself to do new ideas, then you're going to fail, right? You have to be able to fail sometimes to be able to be pushing yourself to the next level. And stop disruptive competition. And that goes for, I'm competitive, I am. And so when I first started off in this field, I was comparing myself to the other managers, I can do that better than they can. Don't do that. That does not make you look good, it makes you look bad. And I learned that the hard way. I'm gonna leave one last video.
A lot of books on this because it's very important.
Oh, hold on.
And all these books say the same thing. So I've narrowed 15 or 16 books down into 2 words.
Stop.
And these 2.
Stop. You got to hear it from the beginning, and I don't know how to get it back. Hold on. I am. Am I sliding it? Okay. Who knows how to do this real fast? All right, I'm going to do it.
Will help change the.
Oh, can you fix it? He's my hero.
I would like to take just a minute to talk about positive climate and culture in your building or your office or your company. I've read a lot of books on this because it's very important. And all these books say the same thing. So I've narrowed 15 or 16 books down into 2 words, and these 2 words will help change the climate and culture at your office or building or company. Simply remember these 2 words: pudding, Oprah. You get a pudding, you get a pudding, everybody gets a pudding. If you just remember those 2 words, pudding, Oprah, your climate and culture will improve drastically.
Thank you. That's the QR code to the presentation. I have business cards if anyone wants to chat afterward if you have any questions. I've been asked to do that in the hallway because we have to vacate this room really fast. But thank you all, we're really great.